Welcome to Full Send into Adulthood, hosted by Dr. Cielle, a former professor, dean, and certified life coach. This podcast is for you amazing young adults and is a go-to for all things adulting. Join us for conversations about what matters to you, including navigating the often overwhelming ride of adulthood, redefining what's possible for yourself and your communities, and creating a life that you are proud of on your own terms, even if nobody else is doing it. We're igniting a movement where you change the game and challenge the marginalization that often comes with being a young adult. Ready to feel better about this adulting thing? Let's do it.
We are back, and I am so excited for episode 2, especially since I have been singing the theme song of this episode all morning. We are going to Britney Spears. So the title of this episode, it's a long one, but it's How Am I Supposed to Know What's Right? You just gotta do it your way. So have we gone back to 90s, early 2000s Britney Spears? Yes, we have. This was early 2000s. How do I know? Because I can actually imagine and visualize right now where I was. I was living at a big yellow house in the middle of Bloomington, Indiana, with 6 other humans whom I just met that year. Yes, it was like the real world. If you know, you know. It's like the real world. And Courtney and I, my girlfriend Courtney, amazing opera singer that she is, we would blast this song, Overprotected by Britney Spears, over and over and over again in the living room and dance our hearts out. This is the one that goes, I need time, space, joy, love. I don't remember the order. I need me. Can y'all get? And it goes, da 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 da. What am I to do with my life? You will find out, don't worry. Not so helpful in the moment, I get it. How am I supposed to know what's right? You just gotta do it your way. And that, my friends, is going to be what we delve into today. Why? Because this is one of the major questions that I get in coaching, but also as an instructor. And I think it is fundamental to this thing called adulting. So let's just talk about it now. How do we know that the choices that we make are right? And then furthermore, right for whom? For us? For others? For society? Ooh, it can get nebulous, but it can also cause a lot of pressure. It can cause a lot of insecurity and self-doubt. And the term that I hear a lot is loss, right? I feel super lost. And a lot of times it's coming from this idea that there is a right way to do this life, that there is a right way that has been set out in motion that we just need to somehow find outside of ourselves that will provide all of the answers, and we just follow the instructions and we live a fulfilling life. Y'all, I haven't figured it out that way. If that really has been the case, I have not heard of it. And so it's a little tough when we do not have the instruction manual. So what do we do in the absence of an instruction manual? Or even better, how do we create our own instruction manual so that choosing and making decisions that feel right to us becomes easier and easier and easier? Let's do that. So I remember in college feeling an extreme amount of pressure to make the right decision. And actually, the pressure was caused from a deep-seated fear that if I made the wrong decision, that I will royally screw up my life for the rest of my life. And that was related to choosing my major. What college do I go to? What jobs do I choose? Who do I hang out with? What love interest? All of those things. I was like, oh, I have to make all these right choices because if I don't, somehow the rest of my life is going to suck. Or I'm going to regret it the rest of my life. So here's the good news. The good news, so take it from me 20 years later, is there are very little decisions and choices that you can make that will royally screw up the rest of your life. I'm thinking, maybe don't break some laws that could send you to jail, but other than that, you're basically good. This is just the beginning of starting to make choices. And once you make a choice, you live that choice for a little bit. And then if ever that choice starts to not feel right anymore, there's that word again. If ever that choice starts to feel confining or icky, or you just don't want to do this thing anymore, guess what? You get to choose again. And then you get to choose again. And then you get to choose again. So this is just the beginning. So if I can alleviate this thing that there's this mountain of choices that we all have to make at the beginning of our lives that's going to either set us up for failure or set us up for success, that is a bunch of baloney. Baloney, 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 baloney. Why do we actually say that? It's a bunch of hooey. So how do we start to make decisions as adults that feel really good to us? Let's first validate that doing things that feel good to us and making choices based off of what we want to do and trusting ourselves in doing so is difficult, because as we're brought up as children, we are actually brought up to listen to the adults. We are brought up to listen to others in order to help us survive. And as kids, that is how we learn how to live in this world, is by observing and listening and taking into account what older humans have done, what other people do, in order to gauge what we can do in order to continue to survive. But here's the issue with that, is we then reach this maturity. We reach this adulthood where now we need to start making decisions for ourselves. And we come to an equalizer point where we have learned the skills necessary in order to survive, and we are at the same page as other adults in this world. But it's a hard transition for us to now start to trust our own decision-making skills. Now, how does this affect us when there is a choice or a decision that we want to make in our lives? What we tend to do is we tend to crowdsource, and we get all of the opinions of everyone else, and we take that into consideration. But how often do we take into consideration our own opinions, what data we've actually acquired? We tend to also give priority or validate other people's opinions and judgments over our own. Again, not because there's something wrong with us, not because we're faulty. It's just the way that we were brought up as kids, except for now we're being asked to not be kids anymore. We're being asked to be these adulting things, and we don't know how to do it. So here's an analogy that works for me. Maybe it'll work for you, is to think of ourselves, let's do this. Let's think about a CEO of a business. The CEO of a business has an idea of what the culture of that business is, has an idea of who the people are, what the funding looks like, what the vision is. Now, in order to make decisions as a CEO, sometimes they will hire consultants. And the consultants will come in and give their ideas based on their expertise. And then what does the CEO do? The CEO will then take into account all of that information to see, does that fit with the company as it is? Does that fit with what we are trying to create as a company? If it doesn't, guess what? It doesn't mean the consultant sucks. It means what they said was valid in their own expertise, but when we try to integrate it with the company, it doesn't work. What if, when we're listening to all of those opinions and judgments that people have about what this life is about and how to succeed at this thing called life, What if we could treat them as our consultants? As in, we are the CEO, we are the captain. Ooh, oh, captain, my captain. We are the lead, we are the queen, whatever, of our own life. We know what is important to us. We know what we are capable of. We know our vision best. And when we hear the ideas of these consultants, i.e., humans in our lives, we can consider them, but ultimately consider how it integrates with what we are wanting to create in our lives. And I am hoping that I am one of those consultants. Sometimes you come here and you listen, and maybe you'll get a great idea that'll help you, or a different perspective that'll support you, or that'll give you clarity in creating whatever your next move is. Sometimes I will be. And sometimes you're going to listen to what I say and be like, not for me. Or maybe you're going to listen and say, not yet, but this may actually work for me in a year or 2 years. Who knows? I'm giving you permission here, if you need it, to actually be CEO, head, queen, king, captain of your own dang life, and to treat us all as your consultants. Oh my gosh, I just remembered my oldest son, he's 13, and he's like, peasants. You could treat us as that if that helps you. That is actually one major reason I love being a coach, is that I feel really uncomfortable when people ask me for advice, because I always have thought and still think, who am I to say what is best for you? I have ideas, I have perspectives, but you know your life best. You know what you want. You know what's important to you. You know the people who are involved. You know where you want to be going. No matter what, you know it feels good to you or not. So yes, I can have ideas, but who am I to tell you what is best for you? Whereas a coach, I get to support and encourage and mirror back the things that you say is important. As a coach, I get to be here as a space where magic happens. And the magic is that in this space, you get clearer and clearer and clearer about what you actually want. You get clearer and clearer and clearer that you've known all along. You get clearer and clearer and clearer that you don't need me in your life. And you can stay in my life because it's fun. But y'all, it's there. And if you don't trust me yet, stick with me. At some point, I believe you will. So let's talk about this coaching thing, because that's also something that I get a lot of questions about, is what is a coach? What do you do? What's a life coach? So let's bring it to sports, because I think that's where we understand coaching the most, is related to sports. Now, if you are an athlete who has a coach, can you see that the coach is on the sidelines? The coach can help you at your skills. The coach can give you plays. But as an athlete, you are skilled and badass as an athlete on your own. The coach can enhance your plays. The coach can give you perspective about what you might not be able to see on the other team. But ultimately, the coach is there to support you in playing the best game possible for you and the team. So let's bring this to life. A life coach does just that. I get to support you on the game, and in this case, the game is life, on this game that you want to play. First of all, what game do you want to play? And by what rules? What rules are we playing by? And how do you win this game of life of yours? And how do you want to play? Who do you want to play with? What role or positions do you want to play? And once we start to elaborate and to clarify those things, it's a go. Not because somehow I am better at doing this human thing than you are. That's just not the case. It's because I have a different perspective, because I am not living your life. And because of that, because I have some sort of separation, there are other things that I can see. Because I've had this conversation possibly many, many, many times, there's a different clarity or a different perspective that I can bring. Ooh, let's do a rock climbing analogy. Y'all, Cielle at 14 loved her rock climbing. So we are all, in this analogy, climbing a mountain that is life. Now, when you are climbing, we are against the rock face. We don't get to see much that is around other than our holds, right? We got this hold. How am I going to get this hold? How do I make sure that I don't tire myself out so that I can actually keep climbing this mountain? Now, most of us, when we're climbing a mountain in rock climbing, we have somebody who's belaying us, somebody who's on the ground and they have the ropes and they're supporting us. Think of the coach as the belayer in this analogy. So let's say I'm on the floor, I'm on the ground, and I'm belaying you, and you are up against this rock face. I am able to see, because I am at a different vantage point, that there may be a foothold for you right by your left knee. And you can't see it, again, because you are against the rock face and there's no way that you can see it from your perspective. But because I'm at a different vantage point, I can see it. And I can offer that as a suggestion and say, it looks like there is a hold by your knee on the left side. Try it out and see if that works for you. Does that belittle or discount the skill that you have in climbing your own damn mountain? Absolutely not. It gives you a choice, something that's out of your periphery to say, oh, let me try it. Maybe that'll work. And as you move your foot up towards your knee, you can see, can I handle it? Does this actually work? Yes, it does. Keep climbing. Oh, no, that actually doesn't work. It's at a weird angle. Perhaps it's not a hold at all and it's a freaking beetle. I don't know. But that's the role of the coach. Encourager, cheerleader from the ground, somebody who can see different perspectives. Maybe they have a knowledge base. Maybe they've climbed this mountain 70 times. And so then you can use their knowledge base to climb this mountain and they know where the holds are. Awesome. Maybe they've climbed mountains like this 70 million times and can provide you that kind of information. No matter what, though, you're still the one who's climbing the mountain. And we are here to support you in doing that. Of course, if you have any other questions about coaching, you can always ask me and I will answer. So let's go back to the initial question. How am I supposed to know what's right? How am I supposed to do this life right? How am I supposed to make the right decisions for me? Let's talk about the word right. Yes, I'm still an English professor at heart, y'all. So the definition currently of the word right tends to mean what is correct, to live life correctly or in an acceptable manner. To which I would respond, well, who gets to decide what is correct? Who gets to decide what is acceptable? If we actually go back to the origin of the word right, it's linked to moral conformity. It's about conforming to moral standards, creating a standard according to moral law. Again, I ask, whose standard? So perhaps you do want to use other people's standards as the way to model your life. Please know that you are using other people's standards to do that and that it is a conscious choice to do so. Many of you, I will just say, I can't even say the word conform without freaking out. My whole being is like, you will not conform. So y'all just know that that's who I am and that's part of me. Some of y'all would be like, conform to what? In which case, again, I get to ask you, whose standard? And we are allowed to create our own standards. Y'all, those moral laws and those standards and conformity and society and these rules, they were created by someone. They may have been hundreds or thousands of years ago. They were created by humans. Which means that because you are also human, you could actually create them too. Yes, I get passionate about this. And here's where it can get wonky. especially young adults, when we're trying to make decisions for ourselves and we are looking to people who we tend to trust to say, what do I do here? And they come out with a societal rule or a societal standard as an absolute that's like, this is the way that it is done. And so we start to feel, oh shit, I guess I got to do it this way. And sometimes we know it's not the right way for us. Now, here's what I know to be true with all of the people that I know and speak with, is that we fundamentally want to live our most fulfilling, most personally meaningful lives possible. If we didn't, you wouldn't be here. If you didn't, you wouldn't care about making the right choices. The intention behind making the right choices is an amazing one. It's that we want to do this life well. We want to get to the end of our lives and say, whoo, what a ride. That was awesome. Many people say that they don't want to live with regret. They want to get to the end again and say, I did it just the way. Ooh, I'm thinking of Frank Sinatra. I did it my way. And it felt really good. Ooh, that probably got high pitched. I wonder if y'all heard that. How do we begin to do this? One way is that we can begin to trust what is right for us, meaning we create our standards. We say what feels good. We start to say what is correct for us. And this will not always be easy, because when we make a decision, a lot of times we are going to consider the knowledge base that is outside of us. We're going to consider the people whom we trust. We're going to, a lot of times unconsciously, hold by ideals that we've been brought into based on the cultures that we have grown up in. Normal. The issue happens when they conflict. The issue happens when something in society says this is the way to do it in order to be a success, and it feels at odds with what you want to do. And there's a clash. Because we have been taught to trust others over ourselves, we tend to then self-doubt, self-deprecate, be mean to ourselves, like, why can't you just succumb? Sometimes we're overwhelmed. Sometimes we go into paralysis. Again, normal reactions when we're at odds and when we are validating that there is one right way to do it, which is what society says, versus the way that we want to do it. And we've never tried it out before. And of course, it's going to be freaking scary because we've never done it before. So our nervous systems and our brains are like, are we going to survive this thing? We haven't gone out on our own yet. We haven't done it this way. We haven't done it our own way yet. And so, of course, we're going to be scared, and fear is going to show up as a protector to say, are we going to survive this thing? And guess what? You get to say yes. We are going to survive this thing because it is important to me enough to go do it. So let's do some examples. What are some things that often get in young adults' brains that I hear quite often? Ooh, a gap year. How many of y'all have not taken a gap year or decide not to take a break from school because you believe what society says, which is, if you take a gap year, you're never going to go back? Is that the truth? Perhaps for some human beings, but does it have to be the truth for you? Y'all, I took a gap year. I took several gap years. So between my master's and my doctorate, so I actually thought I was going to go through my doctorate all at Indiana University, all in comparative literature, and I freaked out about the dissertation, and everything felt wrong about doing a dissertation at that point. And I made a choice. Actually, let's go into that choice real quick, because I'm making it sound like it was easy, but it was not easy. So I was in a lot of turmoil. And there was a moment where I was sitting next to my brother, and I realized that I was the only person who decided that I was going to get a doctorate. Nobody in the world ever told me that I needed to get a doctorate. I was the one who said I was going to get a doctorate, and I was the one putting pressure on myself to get the doctorate. And I realized in that moment, sitting next to my brother, that because I was the one who decided I was going to get a doctorate, I was also the one that gets to decide I do not need to do it. Surprise, surprise. It felt so magnanimous to me in that moment. I remember having it wash over me, and I flipped out and I put my knees. I got so excited, and I turned to my brother and I was like, I don't have to do my doctorate. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, this has changed my entire life. And so it was at that point when I realized I didn't have to, that I decided to get a terminal master's, graduated with that, still went off to go teach in France, did the things that I love to do. I, at that point, didn't know whether or not I was going to complete it or not, if I was ever going to finish this PhD or doctorate thing. And a couple years later, it felt right to me to go do the thing. And it was in a different field. It was in education. And it came at the perfect time, because it just so happens that at that point I decided to get a doctorate in education. And then I started to run schools. And then I decided to focus on teacher leadership and professional development and shit. I was actually doing that practically in real time while I was running the schools. It worked out. And because it was important to me, several years later, I decided to go back for my doctorate, and I did it. And y'all, even as I was doing my doctorate, I took breaks. I took breaks to like run schools and have babies and stuff. And I still finished. It still happened. And actually, I couldn't even tell you how many breaks I took. That's how much of a non-issue it has become. So yes, sometimes we'll hear something like, don't take a gap year because you'll never go back. That is a perspective or an opinion outside. Again, think of consultant. You can say, let me see if that actually works for me. Trusting that you know yourself best. Some of you, if it's important enough, you will come back and do the thing again. Some of you know that you absolutely need a break because you are so burnt out, because you are feeling so dead inside about whatever this thing is. And perhaps with some rest, with some perspective, with a break, you can then make a choice and a decision that works for you that may or may not include what you're taking a break from. Some of you may know that a gap year from school is a detriment to you. Some of you may know that you are so good with an accountability partner, that you love being in school, that you are not burnt out by it, and that it'll actually support you in your endeavors. Can you see that there are a variety of perspectives here, all related to gap year? And they can work for you or not based on, again, what is important to you, what you're able to do, where you are in the moment, what your vision is, what your goals are. There's a lot of malleable parts. And just because you don't do it right now doesn't mean you're never going to do it. Let's do another example. One that I hear so often related to productivity and laziness is work hard, play hard. Work hard, play hard. Is that not how our entire corporate work system is? Work hard for 45 years and then play hard for like 2. It's a little ludicrous, honestly, this work hard, play hard. Again, though, depending on the circumstance, sometimes it does actually feel really good to get the hard things done or the things that you don't really want to do, so that you can go play and not worry about it anymore. If that's your brain. For people with ADHD and ADD, the work hard, play hard model doesn't work very well. A lot of times it's play, 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 work, play, 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 work, or work, play, work, play, work, play. The need to create dopamine while working needs to be there. There needs to be a celebratory dopamine hit in order to continue to work. So can you see that there are variants? Again, this thing that society has deemed as successful, the rules, the standards, this conformity is not necessarily true for every individual case. All of this to illustrate that just because we have these so-called deemed right ways to do the world, to do life, to do this adulting thing outside of us, all these stories and narratives that are infiltrating our brains, we can... What did I do? For those of you listening, I took stuff from my brain and threw it away. We can actually shush that up and say, does that actually fit with me? Does the gap year model work for me? Does the work hard, play hard model work for me? So how do I want to end this episode? Let's end it with this. I have an amazing coach who a couple years ago asked me this question that broke me. And it broke me because I realized I hadn't been doing it in 40 years. She asked me, what if you treated yourself like you mattered? So my friends, I am asking the same question of you today. What if in your life you treated yourself like you mattered? What if you treated yourself like your ideas mattered equally as much as other people's ideas? What if what feels good to you and what you want to do matters just as much as what other people want to do with their own lives? What if you could filter all of the noise that is other people's judgments, opinions, and advice through this filter that is, they are your consultants. And ultimately, you get to say what works best for you based on what you want, what you love, what feels good, what you're capable of, what's important to you, your energy levels today, your vision. And you get to use today, this moment, as your gauge. We don't know what life is going to look like in 40 years, 10 years, 6 months. But we do know how we feel today. And we can start to trust that when we make the steps that feel good and are based on values and standards that we set for ourselves because they're important to us right now, that'll then lead us to the next thing. And at that point, guess what? We get to then make new choices based on what feels good to us, what's important to us, and what matters at that point. And so on and so forth. My friends, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm loving this platform so far. I'm loving being able to speak with you this way. Please do connect with me. I really want to know if you have any questions or concerns about anything that we discuss in these podcasts. If you have ideas about future podcasts or things that you want me to elaborate on, please let me know. And of course, if there's something that hit you or really helped you, I would really appreciate knowing that. It helps me create next episodes and other ways that I can support you that are actually valuable to you. So thank you again for being here, and I'll see you at the next episode. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I realize that we are at the beginning of our podcasting journey together. However, if you are already excited, already wanting to share this with people in your lives, already thinking that it would be beneficial to have these conversations on a more global scale, there are ways that you could support that. One of the main ways is to like, follow, and subscribe on whichever platform you are watching or listening to me on. You could always comment. I would love to know what you found helpful or interesting in any of the episodes. And of course, if you have ideas about what conversations, what topics you would like to cover in the future, please let me know. Again, this podcast is for you. Other ways that you can find me are on social. So I am on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Cielle Amundson. That is at CIELLEAMUNDSON. Find me there, say hi, let's start a conversation. And if this is something that you think other people in your lives would love to be a part of, would love to hear, would love to be in conversation with, please share this with them. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you or having you at the next episode.